She never expected that a simple shift at the diner would change her life forever. Lily Brooks stood by the counter, wiping down the last few glasses. The dim lights of Roscoe's diner flickered as the clock ticked closer to closing time. Another long night of serving food to Manhattan's elite. Another night of remaining unnoticed. She'd learned long ago that in this world, people like her, the quiet ones, the waitresses, rarely mattered. But tonight was different. Tonight, Alex Carter, the billionaire real estate mogul, sat at a corner booth, surrounded by his colleagues, and like always, he was laughing. His laughter echoed through the diner, his voice loud and arrogant as he mocked the world around him. It wasn't the first time Lily had heard him laugh at someone, but it was the first time she felt a strange twist in her gut when it wasn't directed at her. The CEO of Carter Realty didn't seem to notice her at first, but his eyes flicked to her as she passed his table, his gaze cold, calculating, dismissive. "Hey, waitress," he called out, his tone more demanding than polite. Lily didn't flinch. She'd dealt with worse, but this time it was different. He wasn't asking for a drink or for a refill. No, he was mocking her. "What's your name, anyway? Or do you not even remember it?" The other men at the table laughed, and Lily's heart sank. She could feel the heat creeping up her neck, but she refused to let them see it. She gave him a polite smile and turned away, pretending not to hear. The laughter died down after a few moments, but Lily knew it would continue the next time she came around. She had learned to let it slide, to let people like him think they were better, more important, more worthy. After all, she was just a waitress, right? But tonight, something in the air felt different. As she walked back to the kitchen, she overheard a conversation between one of the businessmen at the table and Alex. It was a business deal, something big, something that could affect hundreds of people. She caught a few words, just enough to understand the magnitude of it, and for the first time in a long while, Lily felt something stir inside her. She didn't want to eavesdrop, but the words were too loud, too clear, to ignore. A deal that could change the city, she thought. She could almost hear the ticking of the clock as the plan unfolded in her mind. Suddenly, she wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a woman who knew things, a woman who understood finance and strategy, a woman who could change the course of events with just a few words. It wasn't that she was smart. She was more than that. She had been to college, earned a degree, but life had pulled her away from her dreams. There had been no room for ambition when her family needed her. She had learned to survive in the quiet corners of life, watching and listening, picking up knowledge that others took for granted. But Alex Carter didn't know any of this. He didn't know that Lily had once studied finance at a prestigious university before she had to drop out, or that she had spent years working on strategies in the shadows. No, to him, she was just another face behind a counter, a figure to be overlooked and ridiculed. But that night, Lily's sharp mind wouldn't stay hidden. As she approached their table with their drinks, her heart pounded in her chest, and for the first time, she didn't feel like the invisible woman behind the bar. "Excuse me," she said, her voice calm but firm, drawing Alex's attention. "The investment opportunity you're discussing, I think you're missing a key factor that could affect your return. Have you considered the emerging market risk in your analysis?" Alex froze for a moment, his sharp eyes narrowing as he looked at her. His lips curled into a smirk, but there was a flicker of something else, curiosity, perhaps. His colleagues looked at him, then back at her, bewildered by her interruption. "You're a waitress," Alex said with a raised brow, clearly amused. "What do you know about market risk?" Lily stood her ground, her gaze unwavering. "More than you think," she said quietly, and then, in a voice that surprised even herself, she began to explain the flaws in the deal they were planning, the risks they hadn't factored in. The room fell silent as Lily laid out her analysis. She didn't know what made her speak up, but she did. Her words were measured, confident, and when she finished, the group stared at her in stunned silence. It wasn't just that. She had given them insight they hadn't considered. It was the way she had done it. Calm, collected, without hesitation. Alex was no longer laughing. His gaze remained fixed on her, as if trying to comprehend the woman standing before him. "You should be working for us," he said, his tone no longer mocking, but thoughtful. Lily met his eyes and gave him a slight smile, a smile that said she was no longer the invisible woman behind the counter. She was someone to be reckoned with. Alex stared at Lily, his mind racing. The room was silent, and the air was thick with tension. He had expected mockery, perhaps even disdain from the waitress, but not this confident, measured response. He had underestimated her, and now he was paying the price. His colleagues exchanged glances, clearly as shocked as he was. He had always been the smartest person in the room, the one with all the answers, but Lily had just exposed a flaw in his thinking that none of them had considered. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, the quiet hum of the restaurant now deafening. You really know this stuff?" Alex asked, his voice quieter than before. Lily nodded, her expression calm, unwavering. She had worked too hard to get where she was, too hard to let this moment slip away. "I know more than you think," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. For a brief moment, there was something in her gaze, something Alex couldn't place. It wasn't just intelligence, it was something deeper, something that made him pause. He had always prided himself on reading people, on knowing exactly who they were within minutes of meeting them. But Lily? She was an enigma. "Tell me more," Alex said, the curiosity in his voice now unmistakable. It was the first time he had actually asked someone for their opinion, the first time he had listened rather than lectured. And it felt different. Lily took a deep breath, then began speaking again, this time more confidently. She spoke about market trends, emerging economies, and the shifting landscape of investments. Her words were sharp, precise, and her analysis was nothing short of brilliant. The more she spoke, the more Alex realized how little he knew in comparison. He had always assumed he was the smartest person in the room, but in that moment, he understood just how wrong he had been. By the time she finished, the other men at the table were silent, their faces a mixture of disbelief and admiration. Even Alex's usual bravado had melted away. How did you learn all of this?" he asked, genuinely intrigued. Lily hesitated for a moment, her fingers lightly tapping the edge of the table. "I was in school for finance," she said, her voice softening. "But life happened. Family, responsibilities." Her words were simple, but the weight of them hung in the air. Alex could sense that there was more to her story, something she wasn't saying. "What do you mean?" he pressed, his curiosity now fully piqued. Lily shifted uncomfortably, but didn't look away. "I had to drop out. My family needed me, but I never stopped learning. You don't have to be in a classroom to understand the world." Alex's eyes softened, his usual confidence replaced by something far more vulnerable, respect. He had met many people in his life, but none like Lily. None who had the courage to keep moving forward despite the odds stacked against them. "You're incredible," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. The sincerity in his tone caught her off guard. She had never expected him to say those words, especially after how he had treated her earlier. But as she looked at him, she could see that this wasn't just an empty compliment. He meant it. "Thank you," Lily replied, her voice steady but tinged with surprise. It wasn't often that she received recognition for her talents, especially not from someone like Alex Carter. But as she stood there, she realized that this moment, this acknowledgement, was something she would carry with her. Alex watched her for a moment, his mind whirring with possibilities. He had never considered hiring a waitress, especially not one from a diner. But Lily was different. There was something about her that drew him in, something he couldn't quite explain. "Listen," Alex said, his voice gaining confidence again. "I know this might sound crazy, but I want you to come work for me. We could use someone like you. You'd be a valuable asset to my team." Lily blinked, taken aback by the sudden offer. She had spent so many years just surviving, never expecting anything beyond her shift at the diner. "Work for you?" she repeated, incredulous. "Yes," Alex said firmly, nodding. "You have a sharp mind, and I want to see what you can do." Lily felt a rush of emotions, confusion, excitement, disbelief, but she quickly pushed them aside. This wasn't just about money. It was about opportunity, a chance to prove herself in a world that had always overlooked her. But at the same time, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. She had worked too hard to get where she was, and while the offer was tempting, she wasn't sure if she was ready to step into a world that was so different from her own. "I need time to think," Lily said, her voice firm. Alex nodded, understanding. "Of course. Take all the time you need. But know that the offer stands." With that, he stood up and walked toward the door, leaving Lily standing there, her mind racing. She had never expected her life to take such a turn. The quiet waitress who had been dismissed by everyone, even by herself, was now standing at the crossroads of something far greater than she had ever imagined. Lily walked through the busy streets of Manhattan, the city's buzz filling her ears, but her mind was elsewhere. She had never imagined that a night at Roscoe's Diner would change her life so drastically. Alex Carter's offer was still ringing in her head, replaying over and over again. Work for him. It felt surreal. She had been a waitress for years, scraping by. But this was something completely different. She thought about her family, the sacrifices she had made, and the dreams she had tucked away. Could she really step into a world so far removed from the one she knew? Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from her mother. "How was your shift? Hope you're doing okay." Lily smiled, replying with a quick message, assuring her that everything was fine. She had become accustomed to balancing her dreams with her family's needs. That's how it had always been. But now, with Alex's offer on the table, she couldn't help but wonder if her life could be more than just surviving. The offer he extended wasn't just a job. It was a chance to use her skills, to be seen, to make a real difference. But was she ready for that? As she walked, she passed by her old college, the place where her journey had started before everything had changed. The memories flooded back, the excitement of her first day, the long nights studying, and the sense of possibility that had felt endless. She had been on the cusp of something big before reality had hit. Family issues, financial troubles, and the need to take care of her loved ones had all forced her to put her dreams aside. She had left it all behind to help her family, never thinking that one day she might have the chance to return to those dreams. But now, Alex Carter had given her a chance, something she never thought she would get. The weight of the decision settled heavily on her shoulders as she entered her small apartment. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "You've always put others first, Lily. It's your time now." Lily knew her mother was right. But the fear, the uncertainty, how could she leave everything she had known? She glanced at the stack of bills on the counter, the unpaid rent, the looming deadlines, and the nagging feeling that she had put her own life on hold for far too long. She had worked so hard to get by, but now, the opportunity to break free from this cycle was within reach. But with that opportunity came the fear of the unknown. Would she fit in? Would she be able to keep up with the fast-paced world Alex lived in? As much as she had excelled in her studies and despite her sharp mind, she wasn't sure if she could walk into that world and make a mark. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Alex. "Just checking in. Let me know if you have any questions. The offer still stands." The simplicity of the message sent a chill down her spine. He wasn't pressuring her. He wasn't rushing her. He was just waiting. Lily took a deep breath and sat down at the table, the weight of the decision heavy in the pit of her stomach. Her phone screen glowed, Alex's name staring back at her. Her hands trembled slightly as she typed a response. "I need some time to think." She stared at the message, her finger hovering over the send button. But what was she really afraid of? Failing? Or was it the fear of stepping into a world where she didn't belong? She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. She had always played it safe, but maybe it was time for a change. Maybe it was time to stop being afraid and start living the life she had always dreamed of. With a decisive motion, she hit send. As the message was delivered, a sense of clarity washed over her. She had made the first step. Now, it was time to see where this new path would take her. Lily sat at her small kitchen table, the faint hum of the city outside her window blending with the thoughts racing through her mind. She had sent the message to Alex hours ago, and yet, she hadn't heard back. It was late now, and the quiet of the apartment only seemed to amplify the uncertainty gnawing at her. She had told herself she needed time, but as the night stretched on, time seemed to be the one thing she couldn't grasp. She had always been the kind of person who played it safe, kept her head down, and did what needed to be done. But now, standing at the crossroads of a new path, she wasn't so sure. Could she really step into a world that was so different from the one she had known? Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Alex. "Take all the time you need, but I hope we can talk soon." His words were kind, understanding even, but they still sent a flutter of anxiety through her chest. What was she afraid of? The unknown? The change? Or the possibility that she might not belong in the world he had offered her? She had spent so many years making ends meet, fighting for every small victory, that the idea of stepping into something bigger, something unknown, felt almost impossible. But deep down, She knew she couldn't stay where she was forever. She had to at least try. She picked up her phone and typed back, "I'm ready. Let's talk." She stared at the screen for a moment, her finger hovering over the send button. It felt like a huge decision, but in reality, it was just the next step. With a deep breath, she hit send. Immediately, a reply came through. "Great. How about we meet tomorrow afternoon? My office at 3. Her heart skipped a beat. Alex Carter had set up the meeting without hesitation, treating it like it was just another part of his day. But for Lily, this was the beginning of something that could change everything. She looked at the clock. It was already past midnight. She should probably get some sleep, but the idea of tomorrow, of walking into a meeting with Alex Carter, made sleep seem impossible. She had no idea what to expect, but she knew one thing. She couldn't let fear stop her now. The next day came faster than she expected. Lily dressed in her best clothes, the ones she had saved for special occasions. They were simple, but they made her feel confident. She took the subway to the office building, the same one Alex worked in, a towering structure of glass and steel that seemed to pierce the sky. She had walked past it many times, always looking up in awe, never imagining that she would be walking inside. When she arrived, she was greeted by a receptionist who seemed slightly surprised but didn't question her. "Mr. Carter is expecting you. Right this way," the receptionist said, leading her to an elevator. Lily's nerves flared as the elevator doors closed, and she felt her stomach tighten with each passing floor. The doors opened to the top floor, and she was escorted to a sleek, modern office with panoramic views of the city below. Alex was sitting at his desk, looking over some papers. When he saw her, he stood and smiled, a warm smile that was so different from the mocking one she had first seen. "Lily," he said, his voice genuine. "I'm glad you came." She nodded, a little unsure of what to say next. "Thank you for this opportunity," she finally managed to say. Alex motioned to the chair across from his desk, and she took a seat. The conversation started slowly, as they talked about the job and what it would entail. Alex was professional, but there was a hint of curiosity in his eyes, as though he was trying to get to know her. He asked about her background, her experience, and how she had gotten to this point in her life. As she spoke, Lily found herself opening up more than she had expected. She told him about her education, her decision to leave school, and the struggles she had faced in balancing her dreams with the needs of her family. She spoke with more confidence than she had ever felt before, and as the conversation continued, she realized that this wasn't just a job interview. It was an opportunity for her to truly show what she was capable of. "I can see that you've been through a lot," Alex said, leaning forward slightly. "But you've also learned a lot, and that's something that can't be taught in a classroom." His words felt like a validation of everything she had been through, and for the first time, she felt like her past wasn't something to hide. It was something that had shaped her, and it had brought her here. "I'm impressed, Lily," Alex continued. "You have the kind of determination and insight I need on my team. I'd like to offer you the position." Lily's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the moment she had been both dreading and hoping for. She looked at Alex, unsure of what to say, but knowing that this was the chance she had been waiting for. "Yes," she said finally, her voice steady. "I'll do it." Alex smiled. "Great. Welcome aboard." And just like that, her life was about to change in ways she couldn't even begin to imagine. Lily stepped into the sleek, glass-walled office of Alex Carter's company for the first time, the weight of the decision she had made settling heavily on her shoulders. It was a far cry from the small diner where she had spent countless hours serving food and pretending not to care. She had traded in her apron for a sharp, tailored suit, but the nerves still lingered, gnawing at her as she waited in the lobby. She had come a long way from the quiet waitress everyone had underestimated. The receptionist smiled at her as she checked in, and after a brief moment, she was led down a corridor into Alex's office. Alex was already there, waiting behind his polished desk, his usual confident demeanor in place. But today there was something different in his eyes, an acknowledgement, a respect he hadn't shown before. "Lily," he said, standing as she entered. "Good to see you again." She offered a small smile, trying to hide the butterflies in her stomach. "Thank you for having me." As she took a seat across from him, she noticed how different the office felt from the bustling restaurant where she had worked. It was quiet, professional, and she could feel the weight of the decision she had made the night before. She had accepted the job, but now that she was here, she had to prove herself, not just to Alex, but to herself. "So, how's your first day been?" Alex asked casually, as though it was just another regular meeting. Lily nodded, trying to steady her nerves. "It's been great. There's a lot to take in, but I'm ready." Alex leaned forward slightly, his expression thoughtful. "Good. I've been keeping an eye on you since our last meeting. You've got potential, Lily." She nodded, unsure of how to respond. This was all so new to her. She had never imagined she would be sitting here, talking business with someone like Alex Carter, let alone be considered for a role on his team. "I'm glad to hear that," she said, her voice steady, though inside she was trembling. "But, Lily," Alex continued, his tone shifting slightly, "potential isn't enough. I need someone who can deliver. The work here is fast-paced, and we deal with high-stakes projects. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This isn't a job for someone who's just looking for a paycheck." Lily met his gaze, her eyes unwavering. "I understand," she said firmly. "I'm not here for a paycheck. I'm here because I want to make a difference." Alex studied her for a moment, as if weighing her words. Then he nodded. "I like that. But remember, this is not just about proving you belong. It's about being able to think on your feet, to make decisions under pressure, and to see the big picture." Lily nodded again, absorbing his words. She had done her research on the company. She knew what was expected, but now that she was here, in this world that was so far removed from the diner, it felt real. She couldn't afford to make mistakes. "I'm ready for the challenge," she said, her voice filled with conviction. Alex leaned back in his chair, the corner of his mouth twitching up into a slight smile. "Good, because I've got a project coming up that I think you could be perfect for." Lily's heart raced. A project? Already? She hadn't even fully settled in yet, and Alex was already offering her an opportunity. "What kind of project?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Alex reached for a folder on his desk and slid it across to her. "This is a potential merger," he said. "We've been in talks with a company for the past few months, and we're looking at ways to move forward with the deal. I need someone who can look at the numbers, assess the risks, and give me an honest evaluation." Lily glanced down at the folder, feeling the weight of it in her hands. This was it, her chance to prove herself, to show that she was more than just a waitress who had gotten lucky. "I'll get started right away," she said, her mind already racing through the possibilities. Alex smiled, clearly satisfied with her response. "Good. I'll be expecting a report from you by next week." As she stood to leave, Alex spoke again. "Lily, I'm glad you're here. I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do." She nodded, a feeling of determination washing over her. She was no longer the shy waitress who had been invisible to the world. She was here now, and she wasn't going to let anyone, least of all Alex, underestimate her again. Lily sat at her desk, the weight of the folder in front of her feeling heavier than it should. The project Alex had given her was no small task. A potential merger, something that could change the trajectory of the company, and she was the one who had to make sense of the numbers. She had spent the last few days poring over spreadsheets, analyzing projections, and trying to make sense of the data in front of her. The world she had stepped into was fast-paced, demanding, and full of pressure. But Lily was determined. She wasn't going to let this opportunity slip through her fingers. Every time she doubted herself, she thought about where she had come from. The diner, the countless hours spent working hard just to make ends meet. She had worked her way up from the bottom, and now she was here. She wasn't going to fail. As the days passed, she found herself growing more comfortable in the office. Her colleagues, though initially skeptical, were beginning to see her for what she was, a hard worker with a sharp mind. There were moments of hesitation, of course, but Lily was learning how to navigate them. She had been underestimated her whole life, and now that she was here, in this new world, she was determined to prove everyone wrong. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Alex. "How's the report coming along? Let me know if you need anything." She stared at the message for a moment, her fingers hovering over the keys. She could ask him for help, but she didn't want to appear weak. She had to do this on her own. She had to prove that she was capable of handling this job, that she deserved to be here. "I'm almost done," she typed back. "Just reviewing the final details." She set her phone down, taking a deep breath as she went back to her work. Her mind was racing as she tried to make sense of the numbers in front of her. There was something off, a detail she couldn't quite place. She had been staring at the same data for hours, but it wasn't until she stood up and stretched that it hit her. The numbers didn't add up. She had missed something important, something that could affect the entire deal. Her heart raced as she pulled up the document again, her eyes scanning the rows of numbers. There it was. A small discrepancy, a mistake in the calculations that had gone unnoticed. She quickly corrected it, making sure everything lined up perfectly. Her hands shook as she hit the send button, sending the report off to Alex. It was done. She had done it. The relief was instant, but it was quickly replaced with a sense of nervous anticipation. Would Alex like the report? Would he approve of her analysis? The phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call from Alex. Her heart skipped a beat as she answered it. Lily. Alex's voice came through the phone, calm and measured. I've reviewed the report, and I'm impressed. You caught something I missed. This could be the key to making the merger work. Well done. Lily felt a surge of pride wash over her. She had done it. She had proven herself. Thank you, she replied, her voice steady. I'm glad I could help. I knew you had it in you, Alex said. You're going to be an invaluable asset to this team. Lily felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She had worked so hard to get here, and now, she was finally being recognized for it. I won't let you down, she said, the words feeling more real than they ever had before. As the call ended, Lily sat back in her chair, a sense of accomplishment filling her chest. She had made it. She had stepped into a new world, and she was thriving. But as she looked out the window at the bustling city below, she couldn't help but wonder what was next. This was just the beginning, and she was ready for whatever came next. Lily sat at her desk, her fingers hovering over the keyboard as she reread the latest email from Alex. It had only been a few weeks since she had started working at his company, but it felt like she had already made a significant impact. The project she had worked on had not only impressed Alex, but had also gained the attention of higher-ups within the company. She had proved herself, and it felt like the weight of the world had lifted off her shoulders. But now, the pressure was on. The next phase of the merger was underway, and the stakes were higher than ever. She had spent the last few days reviewing contracts, meeting with the legal team, and analyzing market trends. It was a lot, but it was exactly what she had signed up for. She wasn't going to back down now. As she clicked through the final documents, she felt a sense of determination settle in. She had worked too hard to get here, and now that she was in the game, she wasn't going to let anyone take her out. She had proven herself once, but this time, the challenge was bigger. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Alex. I need you in my office in 20 minutes. We need to discuss the next steps for the merger. Her heart raced as she quickly gathered her things. This was it, the moment she had been preparing for. She walked to the elevator, her mind racing with questions. What did Alex want to discuss? Was it about the numbers? The contracts? Or was there something else on his mind? She didn't know, but she was ready for whatever it was. When she arrived at Alex's office, he was already there, standing by the window with a view of the city below. He turned when he heard the door open, and a smile crossed his face. Lily, come in, he said, motioning for her to take a seat. She walked over, her heart still pounding in her chest. Thanks for meeting with me, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Of course, Alex replied. I wanted to talk to you about something important. He walked over to his desk and pulled out a folder. We're moving forward with the merger, but there are some final details we need to iron out. I want you to take the lead on this. Lily's eyes widened. Take the lead? She had been involved in the process. Yes, but to actually lead it? That was a huge step. She opened her mouth to respond, but hesitated, unsure of what to say. Are you sure? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Alex met her gaze. I'm sure. You've been doing excellent work, and I trust you to handle this. You've got the skills, and you've earned this opportunity. Lily felt a mix of excitement and nerves. She had worked so hard to get here, but this was something else entirely. Leading the merger meant making decisions that could affect the future of the company, and that was a lot of pressure. But she wasn't about to back down. She had fought for this moment. I won't let you down, she said, her voice filled with determination. Alex nodded, his eyes softening. I know you won't. They spent the next hour discussing the details of the merger and what needed to be done. Alex was clear about his expectations, and Lily made sure to take notes, absorbing every piece of information. She was ready for this. She could do this. As she left the office, she felt a surge of confidence that she had never felt before. She had taken the first step into a new world, and now she was ready to make her mark. The challenge ahead would not be easy, but it was hers to take. She had earned it, and she wasn't going to let anyone, including herself, stand in the way. Lily sat at her desk, the numbers and charts spread out before her, the weight of the task in front of her pressing down harder with each passing moment. She had always been the person to work behind the scenes, quietly observing, learning, and waiting for her moment. But now, here she was, leading the final stages of a major merger that could change the course of Alex Carter's company. And she was doing it all on her own. The stakes were high, and the pressure was immense. But Lily was determined. She had spent sleepless nights crunching data, meeting with lawyers, and negotiating terms. Her mind was sharp, focused, and she was starting to feel more like the leader Alex believed her to be. But that didn't mean she wasn't nervous. She had learned early on that there was no room for doubt in the world she had stepped into. If you hesitated, if you showed weakness, you were out. Lily couldn't afford to let that happen. She had worked too hard to get here. As she reviewed the final contract one last time, she heard a knock on her office door. "Come in," she called without looking up. Alex entered, his presence filling the room as always. His usual confident demeanor was tempered today, and for a moment, he seemed almost unsure. "How's it going?" he asked, his tone casual, though there was a hint of concern in his voice. Lily looked up, offering him a small smile. "It's coming along. Just the last few details to finalize." "And how are you holding up?" Alex asked, leaning against the doorframe. "It's a lot of responsibility." Lily paused for a moment, considering his question. She had always been able to keep her emotions in check, to maintain a calm exterior even in the most stressful situations. But with Alex, something about the way he asked made her want to open up. "It's a lot," she admitted. "But I'm not backing down. I know what I'm capable of." Alex studied her for a moment, his eyes softening. "I know you do. That's why I trust you with this." The words hit her harder than she expected. She had always known Alex believed in her, but hearing him say it out loud, with that tone of conviction, made all the difference. It wasn't just that he trusted her, it was that he genuinely saw her. For the first time since she had started this job, Lily felt like she wasn't just the waitress who had gotten lucky. She was a leader, a force to be reckoned with. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady. Alex smiled, a genuine warmth in his expression. "You've earned it, Lily." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared understanding filling the room. Then, Alex cleared his throat, his usual businesslike tone returning. "Well, I'll leave you to it. But if you need anything, you know where to find me." As he turned to leave, Lily spoke up. "Alex, wait." He turned back, raising an eyebrow. "What's up?" "I just want you to know," she said, her voice firm, "that I'm not doing this for anyone else. I'm doing it because I know I can. I'm ready for this. I'm ready to lead." Alex's expression softened again, a proud smile spreading across his face. "I know you are," he said, and with that, he left her office. As the door clicked shut behind him, Lily sat back in her chair, her heart racing. She had made it. She had crossed a line she never thought she would cross, and now, there was no turning back. The next step was the final step, and she was ready. She wasn't just the waitress who had been underestimated. She was the one in charge now, and she wasn't going to let anyone take that away from her. Lily sat in the boardroom, her eyes scanning the room filled with executives and lawyers. The atmosphere was tense, as the final details of the merger were being discussed. She had worked tirelessly for the past few weeks, and now, everything was coming down to this moment. She felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Her heart pounded in her chest as she glanced at Alex across the table. He gave her a small nod, a silent sign of encouragement. She had come so far, and this was the moment to prove it. The discussions continued, and Lily listened carefully, absorbing every word. She had prepared for this, and now it was her time to step up. When the floor was finally opened for questions, she cleared her throat and raised her hand. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to her. Lily stood up, her voice steady but strong. "I've reviewed the final proposal, and I believe there's an aspect that hasn't been fully addressed. The integration plan. It's critical that we ensure smooth communication between both companies post-merger to avoid potential setbacks," she said, her eyes meeting the eyes of the board members. The room was silent for a moment, and then Alex spoke up, his voice filled with confidence. "Lily is absolutely right. This is the key to the success of this merger. We need a strategy that prioritizes collaboration and transparency. Lily's heart swelled with pride at his words. She had earned his respect, and now she was earning the respect of everyone in the room. The meeting continued, but Lily's contribution had set the tone. By the end of the meeting, the final details were agreed upon, and the deal was set to go through. As the executives filed out of the room, Alex stayed behind, walking over to Lily. "Well done," he said, his voice genuine. "You handled that like a pro." Lily smiled, her confidence soaring. "Thank you, Alex. I couldn't have done it without your guidance." Alex nodded, his eyes softening. "You've got what it takes, Lily. You've proven yourself." As the last of the staff left the room, Lily stood there for a moment, taking it all in. She had come a long way from the quiet waitress who had been dismissed by everyone. She had fought for this position, and now she was standing at the top. The future was bright, and she was ready for whatever came next. She had earned her place in this world, and she was not going to let anyone take it away from her.